Survivors of the May earthquake in Sichuan province get some warmth as winter sets in. Falling demand and gloomy economic news in the U.S. sent oil prices falling to $35 a barrel. And a Japanese government approves a record budget in a bid to revive Asia's largest economy. Hello and welcome to this edition of NewsHour on CCTV International. I'm Zhou Yue in Beijing. The Chinese government says it is working on more measures to stimulate domestic demand and maintain steady growth of foreign trade. The announcement came after an executive meeting of the State Council on Wednesday, presided over by Premier Wen Jiabao. Guo Yuhua starts us off.
The meeting indicated that circulation is crucial for the growth of consumption and demand. To improve circulation in rural areas, the government will establish another group of commodity distribution centers in the coming 2 years. This will help facilitate the trade of agricultural products and increase income of farmers. At the same time, the government will increase the variety of commodities available in rural markets and expand its scheme providing subsidies for farmers to buy home appliances. It will also improve service facilities in urban communities, promote the upgrade of durable goods, stimulate consumption during holidays, and step up supervision of product quality and safety. Another key factor for economic growth is foreign trade. The State Council meeting also discussed solutions for exporters who are witnessing difficulties due to the global financial crisis. The government will increase tax rebates for exporters of some machinery and electronic products. It will abolish restrictions on exports of some energy-saving and high-tech products. The government will also urge banks to improve service for foreign traders, especially small and medium-sized firms. It decided to allow the yuan to be used for trade between two southern provinces, Guangxi and Yunnan, and the member states of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. This follows a decision announced last week to permit greater use of yuan for trade between Guangdong province and Hong Kong. Guo Yuhua, CCTV.
The head of the National Development and Reform Commission has delivered his progress report on the economy and social development to the Standing Committee of the National People's Congress. China's economic growth slowed to 9.9% in the first 3 quarters of the year. Pan Deng has the story.
The GDP growth in the first 3 quarters of 2008 didn't come easily. The exports, which have been a major contributor to China's fast economic growth for decades, are now facing severe challenges from the worsening global financial crisis. The top economic planning body admitted that China's economy is confronted with risks that are more severe than expected. Problems in employment, agriculture and finance are expected to continue to increase in the short term. The central government has issued a series of measures to expand domestic demand in a bid to ease the pressure from the worldwide downturn.
The government will stick to a flexible and prudent macroeconomic policy and active fiscal and moderately loose monetary policies, with combined measures of tax cuts and expanded central government investment.
China has already issued a 400 billion yuan massive stimulus plan. The funds will mainly be spent on large-scale infrastructure projects and agricultural subsidies. The National Development and Reform Commission also said that employment should be a priority in the government's agenda over the next 2 years. This is especially concerns migrant workers, some of whom lost their jobs due to the economic slowdown. The top economic planning body added that efforts should also be made to enhance reforms on resource prices and the tax system. Pan Deng, CCTV.
Sichuan civil affairs authorities are stepping up efforts to distribute winter materials to those affected by May's earthquake. A cold snap has hit the province over the past couple of days. Zheng Sui has this report.
Temperatures in much of Sichuan have dipped sharply. The biggest drop reached 12 degrees Celsius. Light snow is falling in some areas, including the quake zone. Some power lines are also frozen.
The cold snap is expected to bring our highest temperatures to merely between 6 and 8 degrees Celsius.
But pupils in the quake zone are feeling a bit warmth.
The teacher has asked us to wear hats. I also have this hot water bag. I also have knee pads. There were donations given to us.
Before the cold snap set in, Sichuan had received donations of 12,000 quilts and 17,000 items of clothing. All have been given to people in the quake zone, and Sichuan itself is also well prepared. Authorities have allocated more than 215 million yuan or over $31 million for winter materials. They include over 717,000 quilts, 212,000 sets of padded clothing, and huge stocks of other items for keeping warm. The rebuilding of permanent houses for farmers continues at an intense pace. Over 500,000 have been completed. Zheng Sui, CCTV.
More than 7 months after the devastating earthquake hit Sichuan province, resettlement plans are taking shape in most of the affected areas. In our second story of our special series, Revisiting Wenchuan, Han Bin takes us to one village to see how things are unfolding. As he finds out, though China has won world acclaim for its efficient rescue and relief work, it's relocation and resettlement that poses the biggest challenge.
Building homes, the start of resettlement. Farmers from Mato village are being relocated here in a different style of housing suggested by the government. The design comes from Taiwan architect Xie Yingjun. Though common in Taiwan, it's new for Mato.
Our steel structure building works similarly to the traditional wood and brick structure. The only difference is that my design is much higher and the materials used are cheaper.
Xie Yingjun says his building is stronger but lighter. The green concept complies with the international trend.
Survivors are particularly sensitive to space, and they need a comfortable place to stay. Xie Yunjun's design seems to take all this into consideration.
But there are things Xie didn't foresee. Villager Jin Shufang argues that the cost of the new building is much greater than he had expected. Xie Yingjun showed him how to use cheaper materials like bamboo strips. But Jin's problem is more than a lack of skills.
I don't like this concept, but I can't oppose the relocation program of our village. Our biggest problem is lack of funds. We're preparing some materials for the completion work next year, but I have to borrow money for relocating now.
Jin Shufang showed me his old house, about 3 kilometers from the new site. Most villagers like him have lost their farmland, the basis of their livelihoods as farmers. Even when their new homes are finished, they have to go elsewhere to find work. The village head says farmers are reluctant to leave their old houses. Rebuilding takes time, and money is always a worry.
The biggest problem for resettlement in our village is funding. Many farmers can't afford the cost of rebuilding their homes. Many can only finish the steel structure or the ground floor.
Until building is finished, the villagers have to live in these shacks.
The government has provided about 1 million temporary homes. Most are like military tents, and most survivors have to make do with them for years. But villagers here in Mato have making things into their own hands to suit themselves.
Jin Shufang built this shack by himself. It's damp, small, and cold. But it holds all 5 of his family members. They managed to salvage some of their belongings. the May earthquake has changed their lives forever. Mato's mountain location means resettlement depends on villagers themselves. Jin Shufang hopes this will be the only winter they spend here. He dreams that support from the outside could help warm up their lives. Han Bin and Li Wei, CCTV, Sichuan Province.
And tomorrow, in Revisiting Wenchuan, Han Bin examines the trauma the quake left to children and their family members. Psychological support and counseling remains a big problem for the survivors. Most provinces in southern China are seeing their first snow of the winter as a major cold front moves south. Dropping temperatures have caused freezing conditions in some areas. The affected provinces are taking measures to prevent problems caused by ice. Li Qiong has more.
Sharp temperature drops over 3 days froze the snow that fell steadily on the highways of Guizhou province. Traffic restrictions have been carried out and some icy roads have been closed. To ease blocked traffic, road conditions will be updated by the Traffic Command Center via radio twice per day. In Guangdong, to ensure the smooth flow of traffic before Spring Festival, the province has mobilized 22 snow clearing machines, carrying out drills to deal with any possible deep freeze. To prevent power facilities from being damaged during the cold spell, power companies in Hunan and Guizhou provinces have installed ice melting devices.
The device will start to work when the thickness of ice reaches 10 millimeters. The melting will be done within 1 hour.
But according to weather experts, a repeat of the winter disaster like the one at the beginning of this year is unlikely.
The extreme freezing weather which caused disasters in the southern provinces this January is very rare. According to meteorological probability and prediction, the possibility of a repeat of freezing weather is very small.
The experts also said the impact of this cold front across the country is almost finished. Temperatures in the south will soon start to rise above freezing. Li Qiong, CCTV.
Engineers have fixed eye-thawing devices for power grids in central China's province of Hunan and southwestern province of Guizhou. Experts say the devices can drive temperatures of power lines up by more than 20 degrees within an hour through electric currents. If the lines are frozen, the ice on them can be quickly thawed as the devices improve the anti-freezing capacity of power lines. Power grids in the southern part of China were severely affected in the snowstorms earlier this year. In time for a market report, we first look at the action in overseas market with a look at Japan. The Nikkei average rose 0.6% Thursday morning, with Toyota Motor and other battered stocks rebounding following a rally on Wall Street. Trading volume is extremely thin due to the Christmas holiday. But Isuzu Motors dipped after a newspaper reported the truck maker plans to implement temporary pay cuts for all of its 8,000 full-time workers in Japan in response to a steep sales decline. Toyota Motor rebounded a little. Investors dumped the stock the previous day after the world's biggest automaker forecast its first ever annual operating loss. Stock markets in South Korea are closed for the Christmas holiday. Moving back home, Hong Kong markets are also closed. Mainland stocks opened nearly unchanged on Thursday after a big fall in the previous session. The Shanghai Composite opened 2 points higher at 1,865 points. Shares of Baoshan Iron and Steel, the listed unit of China's mainland largest steel maker, rose nearly 1% after it raised its prices for key steel products for February from the prior month, as we mentioned earlier. And China Eastern Airlines announced on Thursday that a share placement plan involving its parent firm will be significantly adjusted. The plan is part of a 3 billion yuan government aid package. Shares of China Eastern Airlines will be suspended from trade in Shanghai until December the 30th. And now let's take a look at the indices in the mainland market. The Shanghai Composite dropped by 0.15%. Shenzhen Component dropped by 0.16%. While the Shanghai B shares rise a little bit, 0.35%, and Shenzhen B-share down 0.59%, and CSI 300 down 0.41%. Senior officials of China's top economic planning body have said the country should make modest adjustment in its property market and should avoid sharp price falls. The Vice Minister of the National Development and Reform Commission, Zhang Mao, said on Wednesday that a moderate drop in housing prices could help the property sector maintain healthy development, but severe fluctuations are not expected, as that could lead to a negative impact on the market. Statistics show the property transaction volume has been declining since the end of 2007, and by the end of last month, total floor area that remained unsold increased 15% from a year ago. The dairy manufacturer at the center of the incident over melamine-tainted milk confirmed on Wednesday that it had filed for bankruptcy. The order against Sanlu Group was given by a court in Shijiazhuang, where the company is headquartered. Sun Jiayu has the story.
The Intermediate People's Court of Shijiazhuang City notified the company that it would accept a bankruptcy petition. Earlier this year, Sanlu products were found to contain melamine, which was being used to manipulate the protein content in milk during test. The use of industrial chemical is restricted in the food. The Ministry of Health said about 290,000 children were sickened. Some of their parents have sought compensation. Sanlu cannot afford a step, but law experts say consumers can still ask for compensation from the dealers. Sanlu specialized in cow raising, milk product processing, and R&D, and the company's milk powder products were market leader for 14 years. Sanlu was the company found to be most responsible for the scandal. Among 22 dairy companies whose products were found to contain melamine, its milk formula led to the death of 6 babies. Sun Jiayu, CCTV.
You're now watching NewsHour on CCTV International. Stay with us for these stories and much more. Falling demand and gloomy economic news in the U.S. sent oil prices falling to $35 a barrel. And the Japanese government approves a record budget in a bid to revive Asia's largest economy.
They are the makers of Made in China. They had been in great danger. Depressed by the doubt about the basic food supply to the people. Yet they forge ahead, disregarding many hurdles. Step by step, day by day, they are making true miracles. Every move, every moment. We record, we recall.
Hello again. Crude prices continue to tumble following a raft of bad economic news, and U.S. demand for energy continues to erode. Light sweet crude fell to settle at $35.3 a barrel on Wednesday. It was the 9th straight day that crude has fallen. In February, Brent crude slumped to settle at 36.6 a barrel on the ICE futures exchange. A steady stream of dismal U.S. economic and corporate data during the past few months has hammered investor confidence and sent oil prices reeling 74% since July. Americans continue to cut back on driving in the worst recession in a generation, leading to growing stockpiles of gasoline and eroding demand for motor fuel. Oil traders so far have brushed off attempts by OPEC to boost prices through production cuts. Russian President Dmitry Medvedev has met with his Serbian counterpart Boris Tadic in Moscow. The two leaders have signed a series of agreements that will further cooperation in the oil and gas sector. Medvedev said the agreements would provide energy security for Russia and Serbia as well as for the European countries. The agreements include a pledge to build a section of a gas pipeline through Serbia. The deal means Serbia will sell its oil monopoly, NIS, to Russia's state-controlled Gazprom. But the plan has divided the Balkan countries' lawmakers, even triggering the resignation of a senior official. The Russian president says his country's financial crisis may slow development but will not derail state social programs. Dmitry Medvedev's remarks come amid new warnings that the government next year will face its first budget deficit in a decade. He says hard currency accumulated during an 8-year economic boom driven by high oil revenues would help the country soften the impact of the crises. But he added that unemployment may rise from the current 6%. The president acknowledged that the nation is in a difficult economic situation, but he assured Russians that it is not in danger of defaulting and is not planning to debase the currency. However, he also said that the ruble's rate will become a bit more flexible to reflect the economic situation.
We naturally may lose something because of the crisis. The tempo of growth, real industry development. These are things we have planned for. A crisis is a crisis, but we must not lose any of our social achievements which have been accomplished in the past year.
Well, last year Russia registered a more than 8% economic expansion, but now the country is facing a severe slowdown. In the U.S., California's chief financial officer has warned the state will run out of money in about 2 months as chances of Christmas budget compromise slim. The most popular state in the U.S. is about $15 billion in the red, and the budget deficit is projected to grow to nearly $42 billion in 18 months. And most of the state revenue comes from income tax by capital investment. The downturn of the stock market has cut into expected state revenue. Last week, California Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger ordered all state employees to take Tuesdays off a month without pay or a similar salary cut to save $1.3 billion in the coming fiscal year. He also ordered state agencies to cut their payrolls by 10%. In Asia, the South Korean government says it plans to inject more than $4 billion to stabilize the nation's job market. The Ministry of Labor says it has earmarked $4.09 billion in the 2009 budget to help the unemployed find new jobs and facilitate vocational training. The ministry also plans to push for legislative action to revise a controversial law. Companies would be required to convert irregular workers into regular employees after 2 years' employment. The announcements come as South Korean job creation slumped to a 5-year low in November. The Japanese government, however, has approved a record 88.55 trillion yen budget for the year 2009 fiscal year. Wednesday's announcement is a bid to revive Asia's largest economy amid the worsening global financial turmoil. Meanwhile, markets across Asia are also threatened by the economic crises. Li Qiong has more.
The general account budget penned by the cabinet of Prime Minister Taro Aso is up 6.6% from the initial 2008 budget, reaching an all-time high. But the Prime Minister said the aggressive fiscal policy will be short-term, and he will observe fiscal discipline over the medium term.
It is the most challenging task to secure stable financial resources so as to guarantee sustainable social security. The Cabinet approved the midterm program to reform social security and the taxation system. We will introduce the taxation reform, including raising consumption tax starting in the fiscal year 2011.
Last Friday, the central bank cut its key interest rate to 0.1%, joining the U.S. Federal Reserve in pushing borrowing costs close to zero. In Japan, the Nikkei 225 stock average closed 2.37% down. Shares in Toyota Motor Corporation tumbled 4% on Wednesday. Car makers across Japan are also hit with heavy selling. Li Qiong, CCTV.
Now turn to South America. The Venezuelan president says low oil prices may bring difficult times, but Venezuela will go on. Hugo Chavez made the comments after attending a mass in the capital Caracas on Christmas Eve. He acknowledged oil prices are very low, but said those who hope this will signal the end of Chavez will be disappointed. The president said Venezuela is playing its part in OPEC, which announced production cuts of 4.2 million barrels a day to boost the prices.
We are preparing ourselves for more difficult times. Oil prices continue falling. OPEC is taking the right decisions. Venezuela is playing its position in OPEC. But you can be sure, as I told you yesterday, those who are rubbing their hands in glee, saying that this crisis will finish Chavez. No. We are people of difficult times, and let me tell you, Venezuela will go on. You can be sure.
Venezuela relies on oil for 94% of exports and roughly half the government's budget. The sharp fall in prices may prove to be a severe blow. Still to come on NewsHour when we come back. The military officer who led Guinea's coup reportedly declares himself the interim government leader. And deep discounts bring in last-minute shoppers on Christmas Eve.
Flying higher with dreams. Sharing growth with you. CTV Golden Bridge International Communications Company Limited. Flying higher with dreams. Sharing growth with you. CTV Golden Bridge International Communications Company Limited.
The Four Seasons Agricultural Products Trading Center. Welcome to Lianyungang, Jiangsu.
A travel magazine with real affinity.
Huangshan, a tourism paradise.
For me, global purchasing means only one name, Alibaba. Here it is. I can always find reputable vendors on Alibaba. This is the product, and this year I shipped 12 containers.
Global trade starts here. Alibaba.com.
Tangshan, an ecological city, a reborn phoenix.
More fun, more opportunities, newer city every day.
It is here, my dreamland, Yiwu, China.
Chengdu, the hometown of giant panda.
More fun, more opportunities, newer city every day. It is here, my dreamland, Yiwu, China.
Chengdu, the hometown of giant panda.
Come to Hangzhou. Discover the mystery of China.
Thousand Island Lake. The ideal place to relax. Hangzhou.
Hangzhou. Discover the mystery of China. Flying higher with dreams. Sharing growth with you. CTV Golden Bridge International Communications Company Limited.
And now for a recap of the major stories of this hour. China targets the rural market to increase domestic demand and plans support for exporters. Survivors of the May earthquake in Sichuan province get some warmth as winter sets in. Falling demand and gloomy economic news in the U.S. sent oil prices falling to $35 a barrel. And the Japanese government approved a record budget in a bid to revive Asia's largest economy. Guinea's coup leader Captain Moussa Dadis Camara reportedly declared himself Guinea's interim government leader on Wednesday. The coup came after a radio broadcast from the Guinean capital of Conakry a day earlier said President Lassana Conte had died after a long illness. Zhang Rui has the story.
Several hundred soldiers backing Camara paraded into streets in a show of strength and cheered Camara on. Camara announced the dissolving of government and the constitution, saying a consultative body of civilian and military members will soon be created. The military-led group initially promised there would be an election within 60 days. But Camara broadcast another message on Wednesday, maintaining the group's hold over public airwaves.
The National Council for Democracy and Development has no ambition to stay in power forever. The only reason is our ambition to ensure territorial integrity. Because of this, after careful consideration, the Council will engage itself with organizing free, credible, and transparent elections at the end of December 2010. The Council is engaged in respecting this declaration. We ask the population to refrain from any demonstrations in the streets.
Camara also accused the Guinea's embattled government of bringing in foreign mercenaries to help regain control of the country. But he did not say which country they came from or where they supposedly entering in Guinea. The group set a curfew from 8 p.m. to 6:30 a.m. in the capital. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister said from an undisclosed location that the government remained in control. Zhang Rui, CCTV.
Residents of Baghdad are showing mixed reactions to the Iraqi parliament's resolution allowing non-U.S. foreign troops to remain in the country into 2009. Li Qiong has more.
Iraq's parliament has passed legislation to allow about 4,000 British troops and a smaller contingents from other non-U.S. countries to remain until the end of July 2009.
It is a democratic step because the government and army are still in the process of growing.
Parliament should get all coalition troops to withdraw from the country so the Iraqi army can perform its national role.
Voting on the measure had been delayed by a power struggle between the Sunni parliament speaker and Shiite and Kurdish lawmakers. But the parliament approved the truce measure in a vote after the speaker's resignation.
I found myself besieged with failure inside the parliament, and no one responded to my parliamentary reform paper. Accordingly, I tendered my resignation.
The former speaker added that his resignation is a democratic, honest, pure, and real decision. Li Qiong, CCTV.
India and Maldives inked a $100 million bilateral agreement on credit and air services in New Delhi on Wednesday. The agreements were signed during Maldivian President Mohammad Nasheed's 3-day visit to India. Nasheed said the reason for his visit was to thank India for supporting the Maldivian people for many years. Earlier in the day, Nasheed called for greater bilateral relations and asked Indian industrialists and entrepreneurs to invest in Maldivian state-owned enterprises. Later in the day, Nasheed is expected to meet L.K. Advani, leader of Indian main opposition BJP. The Maldivian president is also scheduled to address a meeting of Indian and Maldivian businessmen and industrialists.
This concludes the signing ceremony. Thank you.
And now let's take a look at news-making headlines from around the world.
Around 200 people gathered at a rally in Tehran on Wednesday, praising the Iraqi journalist who threw his shoes at U.S. President George W. Bush. Motahar al-Zidi has been in custody since he threw 2 shoes at Bush during a news conference in Baghdad earlier this month, and he is set to stand trial for his outburst. His case has become a focus for Iraqis and others who resent the U.S. 8 bodies were found in plastic rubbish bags in the southern Mexican city of Chiapas on Tuesday, only days after 9 decapitated bodies were discovered in the country's state of Guerrero. The victims have yet to be identified, but police believe they may include Mexicans, Guatemalans, or Colombians. The motives for the murders are not clear, but they may be related to the transport of contraband across the Guatemala-Mexico border. A fire broke out on Wednesday in a biological laboratory at the Pasteur Institute in Paris, famed for research on fighting infectious diseases. No casualties were reported, and no sensitive materials or viruses were affected. The cause of the blaze remains unclear. About 700 protesters marched through Athens' main shopping district on Christmas Eve,
demanding the release of those arrested during the recent rioting. There were no reports of violence during the march. Protests and attacks on police have continued since the shooting death of a teenager earlier this month, which sparked the worst rioting Greece has seen in decades.
Last-minute shoppers in Europe have headed to stores and malls looking for the final items they needed and in search of good deals. Retailers extended discounts on Christmas Eve just for that purpose. Some experts estimate that many stores could collapse next year. Lina has more.
Desperate measures to entice shoppers were in evidence on Wednesday in Britain, as a third major retailer collapsed into bankruptcy protection in 24 hours. Several major retailers brought forward their traditional post-Christmas sales and slashed prices by as much as 90%. More retailers are registered on the growing list of casualties of a severe downturn in consumer spending and tight credit conditions. Analysts have speculated that as many as 15 national or regional retail chains could collapse before the end of January. But online retailers say that last year's website sales saw a dramatic surge on Christmas Day.
So we thought then that actually we ought to look to cater to those customers better and create a sale package that would be ready and waiting for them on Christmas Day.
Europeans across the continent were also cutting back on Christmas expenses. Even so, retailers in major cities were still hoping for a last-minute shopping boost on Christmas Eve. In the U.S., holiday sales figures are shaping up to be the lowest in years, possibly the worst since the industry began annual comparison in 1969. One analyst believes the U.S. retail industry could be looking at its biggest contraction in 35 years. The forecast is 160,000 stores will have closed by year's end, and an additional 200,000 will go in 2009, along with up to 3,000 whole shopping malls. Lina, CCTV.
And Christians in the Middle East celebrated Christmas Eve on Wednesday. The celebrations came despite an escalation in violence in this region. Militants in Gaza pummeled southern Israel following the expiration of the 6-month ceasefire. Lina has more.
The Holy Land's top Roman Catholic cleric, Latin Patriarch Fuad XII, arrived at the Church of Nativity compound in Bethlehem. XII was there to lead midnight mass. He became the top Catholic leader in the Holy Land in June, and is the second Palestinian to hold the post. And in Iraq, Christian and Muslim school children celebrated Christmas Eve at their school in eastern Baghdad. The Catholic school, run by nuns, was opened in 1994 and accepts both Christian and Muslim children. The Christmas Eve Mass for Baghdad's small and beleaguered Christian community started before dusk. This was instead of its traditional time of midnight out of security concerns in the Iraqi capital. Fewer than 3% of Iraq's 26 million people are Christians. The number is estimated at several hundred thousand. Thousands of tourists and Palestinians celebrated Christmas Eve in Jesus' birthplace as evening fell in Bethlehem. The celebrations at Manger Square were expected to last all night long. The highlight was to be midnight mass at the Church of the Nativity on the site where Jesus is believed to have been born. Meanwhile, in Gaza City on Wednesday evening, the tiny Roman Catholic community held mass for Christmas. The community decided to cancel the midnight mass and hold an evening one instead to protest the Israeli blockade of the Gaza Strip. About 4,000 Christians, including about 300 Roman Catholics, live in Gaza. Most of the remaining Christians are Greek Orthodox. Lina, CCTV.
Well, it's Christmas Day here in Beijing, and let's see how the world has been celebrating Christmas.
Energy-saving technologies have been adopted for this Christmas fireworks and light show in Hong Kong. The display is now using energy-efficient bulbs that will cut costs by 400,000 Hong Kong dollars. Hundreds of thousands of people showed up at Victoria Bay for Christmas Eve, and restaurants have come up with more economical Christmas menus, hoping to attract customers during tough economic times. U.S. soldiers based at the Bagram airfield have celebrated Christmas in Afghanistan. Wednesday's celebrations began with soldiers singing carols and performing interpretive mime dances. Some said they missed their families during the holiday season. The nativity scene at the Park of Legend Zoo in Peru's capital features some unlikely animals this year. The baby Jesus at the Lima Zoological Park is being kept company by living indigenous animals such as parrots and pacaranas. A tour guide says they want to attract more children and allow them to see a living nativity scene. Workers have put the finishing touches to Moscow's main Christmas tree. Russia's ITA-TASS agency says the tree is about 33 meters high and 109 years old. It's hoped the tree will draw festival crowds to the heart of the Kremlin Cathedral Square. The North American Aerospace Defense Command, or NORAD, has started its annual exercise to track the flight paths of Santa Claus. The first stop for the animated adventure is Auckland, New Zealand. NORAD has been tracking Santa's path for more than 50 years. Last year, NORAD's Santa Tracking Center received over 90,000 calls and responded to 10,000 emails about Santa's journey. And its website received almost 11 million hits.
And coming up on NewsHour in culture and sports. Northeast China dresses up in frozen lace for a winter festival. And new club world champions Manchester United focus on the match against Stoke in the English Premier League.
Legend has it that in 61 AD, the Apostle Thomas brought the gospel message to China. A monument found in Xi'an records the arrival 6 centuries later of the Christian missionary Olopen. In the 1600s, Matteo Ricci built Beijing's first church. On Rediscovering China, we trace the long history of Christianity in China, only on CCTV International.
Postage stamps, when they celebrate a country's historical, cultural, scientific and political achievements, are a form of national advertising. Being both informative and decorative, they have naturally become collector's items. New Frontiers investigates the development of postage stamps in China only on CCTV International.
He sees the world as he feels the music. He conveys what he feels to our hearts. We can learn to appreciate more of what we have, thanks to Lang.
Welcome back. Rime or Wusong in Chinese is a unique winter scene in North China. Thick frost decorates the trees and world seems to be festooned with white lace. It is honored as one of the 4 great natural wonders of China, and Northeast China's Jilin province is one of the best places to witness the spectacle. On Tuesday, Jilin's International Ice, Snow and Rime Festival kicked off amid this winter wonderland.
In its 14th year, the festival has become the highlight of Jilin tourism. It blends travel, culture, sports, business promotion, and winter celebrations. Dozens of activities are taking place, including ice lantern displays, young dancing, and a boat parade. A folk festival featuring the Manchu and Korean ethnic groups and a Northeast Snacks Bazaar attract the crowds. On the opening day, over 1,000 swimmers braved the icy Songhua River, challenging their physical and mental powers. Yang Ran, CCTV.
And Alistair is here with all the latest sports news. Ali.
Thanks very much, Sawyer. We'll get started with football news. After beating LDU Quito in Japan, Manchester United are now club world champions. United manager Sir Alex Ferguson told the media on Wednesday his team are now focusing on a match against Stoke in the English Premier League.
Well, with no injury worries, everyone's come through the trip well. Obviously, we just hope that, we don't know, but we just hope that we've given ourselves enough time to prepare for Friday's game against Stoke. They looked quite fresh in training this morning. I was pleased at that. I think maybe we just about make it in terms of the right preparation to come in Monday night, and I'm sure they've had a good rest Monday night and yesterday we had the day off. So hopefully we've got it right.
NBA action. Houston Rockets lost to the Cleveland Cavaliers on Tuesday. That defeat snapped the Rockets' 4-game winning streak. LeBron James scored 27 points to lead the hosts to a 99-90 win over the Western Conference's best road team. Yao Ming started the game well, but did spend most of the night in foul trouble. The Chinese star played just 10 minutes in the first half and was on the floor for less than 1 minute in the third quarter before picking up his fourth foul. The Rockets did manage to stay close though, thanks to Rafer Alston and Ron Artest. Alston came back after missing 4 games with a strained left hamstring. He scored a team-high 20 points. LeBron James found his offensive rhythm in the third quarter. He scored 15 points as the Cavs opened a 73-66 lead entering the fourth. Well, the Rockets managed to cut that deficit to just 2 points with a 17-4 run. But Daniel Gibson made 2 big three-pointers in the fourth quarter as the Cavs pushed their lead to 92-85. Cleveland's defense did all the rest to ensure the victory. The Boston Celtics also won on Tuesday. They got a franchise record 19th straight victory over the Philadelphia 76ers. The Celtics led by 22 points at 74-52 after Kevin Garnett scored in the third period. Garnett contributed 18 points for Boston, although the Sixers racked up 10 points in a row in the fourth quarter. The Celtics held on to win 110-91. Now this 19-game winning run broke the record set by the original Big Three, Larry Bird, Robert Parrish and Kevin McHale. That was way back in 1981 and 82. The Celtics will now go for 20 in a row against the Los Angeles Lakers on Christmas Day in what will be a rematch of last spring's NBA Finals. In Indianapolis, Devin Harris's jump shot from the top of the key as time expired gave New Jersey a victory over Indiana. The Pacers had just taken the lead on the jumper from Danny Granger with 10 seconds left to play. Harris finished with 29 points and 11 assists. Kobe Bryant scored 26 points as Los Angeles beat New Orleans 100-87. Pau Gasol added 20 points for the Lakers, who stormed to a 19-point halftime lead and led by 20 points early in the fourth quarter. The 2009 Dakar Rally will start in Buenos Aires next January. Driver Lu Ningjun is China's only representative in the car category. Lu Ningjun announced that he would drive for China in the rally on Wednesday morning. This is the 51-year-old Lu's 6th time to take part in the rally. The 2009 event is the first to be staged in South America in 30 years. The race will start on January the 3rd. The 15-day, 6,000-kilometer coast-to-coast race will begin and end in the Argentinian capital. Lu Ningjun is under pressure to get a good result for China in the rally. China's previous best was a 19th place finish by driver Xu Lang. Roller racing, a sport once very popular in the UK in the 1940s and 50s, is currently going through something of a revival thanks to a group of cycling fans who call themselves Rollerpalooza. Now, the bikes on display outside this traditional London pub may hold a clue to anyone venturing into the establishment as to what might be in store inside. Well, as we can see from these pictures coming up, the sport of roller racing is fast, furious, hot and sweaty. Events like this are organised by a special London league that's been set up to help promote the sport. The biggest events attract nearly 100 competitors and more than 250 spectators. Competitors have to sprint as fast as they can over 1,000 meters. Races have been held across the country and are attracting growing numbers of fans, but it's not an easy event to take part in.
It's like 100% effort. It's as much as you can make it, and you think you've given out all you can give, and then you're only about halfway through. And the last half is really difficult, actually. You watch kind of people on there, and they're really struggling.
The atmosphere, definitely. You know, I've only started coming to Rollerpalooza events in the last year, and I've really enjoyed every single one. The people that run it are just really cool, and you know, it's a way of life. You just know you're going to meet loads of cool people every time you come.
That will do it for this sports update. Back over to you now, Zhou.
Thank you, Ali. That's quite a cardio work.
Yeah, perfect for winter.
Yeah. And now a final recap of the major stories we've been following. China targets the rural market to increase domestic demand and plans support for exporters. Survivors of the May earthquake in Sichuan province get some warmth as winter sets in. Falling demand and gloomy economic news in the U.S. sent oil prices falling to $35 a barrel. The Japanese government approved a record budget in a bid to revive Asia's largest economy. The military officer who led Guinea's coup reportedly declares himself the interim government leader. Northeast China dresses up in frozen lace for a winter festival. And new club world champions Manchester United focus on the match against Stoke in the English Premier League. Well, that's it for this edition of NewsHour. I'm Zoe in Beijing. Thanks for joining us, and goodbye.
New format, brighter design, easy access, the latest information. Our website offers you the best of CCTV International online. Our new feature, Anchors Blogs, brings you the stories from behind the scenes. And our interactive service allows you to put your comments online, with perhaps even an invitation to join us in the CCTV International studio. Visit english.cctv.com and get more out of CCTV International.